A prospective Lib Dem candidate who tweeted a cartoon showing Jesus and Mohammed greeting each other has received death threats and is coming under pressure not to run in next year's general election.
He's Maajid Nawaz. He's also the founder of the anti-extremist think tank, the Kuliam Foundation. And he tweeted the picture after he appeared on BBC One's The Big Question, where he was debating people's right to wear T-shirts featuring the Jesus and Mo cartoon.
I'm a Muslim. That T-shirt doesn't threaten me whatsoever. It doesn't threaten my God. It doesn't threaten my faith. It doesn't threaten the Quran. It doesn't threaten any aspect of my religion. I do not feel threatened by these gentlemen wearing that T-shirt.
Well, Nick Clegg has defended his right to send the personal tweet, but Mohammed Shafiq, also a member of the Lib Dem ethnic minority group, wants him dropped by the party.
I think it's important to recognise that where Maajid Nawaz has the right to tweet that cartoon and tweet the link to that offensive website, equally Muslims have the right to challenge that. So freedom of speech can't be selective. It can't be he has the right to tweet that original cartoon and we don't have the right to respond. You know, over the last few days I've received death threats, I've received racist abuse, and I've received a lot of hate from people who support Maajid Nawaz's stance. I'm not going to blame Maajid Nawaz for that stance. I think where we are now is that the Liberal Democrats recognise that this is a very serious issue and that potentially there are a number of seats where there's a strong Muslim presence, including Maajid Nawaz's own seat, where we could suffer. And therefore it's right that the party looks at this in a serious way.
Well, let's speak to David Aaronovitch, columnist for The Times. Hello, David.
Hi there.
And the Muslim commentator Mohammed Ansar. Hello, Mo.
Morning, Nicky. Morning, David.
Mohammed, you've been tweeting about this fairly constantly. Given some of the death threats that have come Maajid Nawaz's way, I would be glad to cut off your neck so your kuffer, whatever it's pronounced, unbeliever friends won't be amused by your humour. You'll get somebody else said you'll get a welcome in Pakistan. The history of violence against people who have depicted your prophet. Aren't you grossly irresponsible, Mohammed Ansar?
No, I don't think so. I think firstly, anybody who is reasonable would absolutely, and I do, condemn those death threats. As you know, Nicky, personally, I've been at the top of the Al-Shabaab death list or their kill list.
Yeah, we're not talking about you. We're not talking about you. We're talking about
anybody. You've asked me a question. I think it's courtesy. Just let me answer it. I mean, you've been very effusive in your, in retweeting Nick Cohen's piece and giving your support for Maajid. I know you have quite a soft spot for Quilliam, so I think we should look at this debate in a balanced way. I think those attacks and threats against Maajid Nawaz, against Mohammed Shafiq and against myself are absolutely disgusting and a disgrace. However, what you have to recognise is there are a number of complaints about a political candidate who people are concerned about. I think there have been 20,000 complaints registered against him, and these go beyond the issue of free speech and cartoons, and people have the right to object in a democratic, British, liberal, pluralist society. And I think the peaceful way to do it is through petition and is through asking the Lib Dems to, and as I understand, they will do, have an investigation into his conduct since becoming a BBC.
Well, the BBC has a clear record on this, as do British broadcasters, by showing Father Ted, Monty Python's Life of Brian and Dave Allen.
I think those programmes are brilliant.
And well, what's the problem with lampooning the prophet, so-called? David Aaronovitch, what do you make of this?
Well, I think I'd like to invite Mo Ansar to do this following thing. Describe to those listeners who haven't seen the cartoon that is supposedly supposed to get Maajid Nawaz deselected as a candidate for the Liberal Democrats, and who is consequently the subject of this petition, which you support, which has 20,000 people on it, some of them from as far away as Saudi Arabia. Perhaps you would like to describe that cartoon to the listeners now, Mo.
David, look...
just describe it to the listeners now so that they get a picture of what the offensive cartoon is.
Describing it, David. Go ahead. I invite you to.
No, you describe it in your words. What is it?
Look, you are the chair of Index for Censorship. I think if you want to talk about a censorship issue, you go for it, David. Okay?
So they understand
I'm not going to describe the cartoons.
So they understand it, this offensive cartoon which has caused 20,000 people to complain about Maajid Nawaz. So the listeners who haven't seen it, You describe it.
David, if you've read the petition, you will know clearly that there are multiple complaints about his conduct.
No, this is about the cartoons. Describe it.
This is beyond an issue of cartoons. And the efforts by the right to try and mischaracterise this debate to get their pet project through.
Never mind about the right. Never mind about all the smoke screens that you can attempt to throw up over this. Describe the cartoon which is supposed to be so offensive. Describe
David,
it.
I'm not sure this makes for either great radio or
Why won't you do that?
This isn't about cartoons, David.
Everybody can hear, Mo, that you won't describe the cartoon you're complaining about.
I'm not come on here to describe the cartoons. You're distracting me.
No, just do it very quickly so that people know what it is you're complaining about.
As a supporter, you might be used to playing the man of the ball.
No.
The issue here, David, is around...
No, hang on, wait a minute. Gentlemen. Now, you're bringing up all sorts of other issues. You have history, Mohammed Ansar, with Maajid Nawaz. You fell out on the one when Tommy met Mo programme. Wait a minute. Over your interpretations of Sharia. But let's get to this point finally. Let's get to this point before we leave this. What you say you're a fan of Dave Allen, which lampooned Christianity. You say you're a fan of The Life of Brian, which lampooned Christianity. What's the problem with lampooning Muhammad and showing an image? Explain to listeners why you have such a problem with that.
Who said I have a problem with the cartoons? I'm just curious to know, if you've been misadvised, I think the ethnic minority Liberal Democrat statement was very, very clear, which is, people have come out to condemn the behaviour. As a political candidate, you've got...
Nicky, can I interrupt this?
Over and above the issue of freedom of expression.
Okay, David Aaronovitch,
I said to your researcher that there was a real problem with having Mo Ansar to do this programme because he is as slippery as an eel. In fact, eels have nothing on him. He won't even describe the cartoon that he's complaining about. Then he says he's not complaining about it. Then he seems to suggest the petition is nothing to do with him. Then he says he doesn't worry about the cartoon at all. It's something else to do with this candidate that he doesn't like.
The problem for some... Do people have the right to complain about a political candidate they feel is inappropriate?
Let David Aaronovitch finish before I tell our listeners something else.
Well, the problem is that I simply don't have the capacity to get hold of him for long enough to find out what his argument actually is.
Okay, thank you both very much indeed. Mohammed Shafiq told us he has promised not to speak about this until after a meeting he's due to have with the Lib Dem leadership this week. He also says 60 Muslim organisations and imams have written to Nick Clegg to complain about Nawaz. Mr. Nawaz says he's been advised by police not to speak to us before he's released the statement. It's 7:46, you're with 5 Live Breakfast.